time to save the world.
Parents kicked me out for my pregnant sister and her BF. So I struggled for years, then they suddenly showed up, asking for help to support my sister because her BF dumped her. Hey guys, so to begin with, 5 years ago when I was 18, my parents asked me to leave and kicked me out of the house because, according to them, it was more important for my sister's boyfriend to move in with her. I'm 23. I have an older sister, Chloe, who's 4 years older than me. When she was 22, Chloe got pregnant with her boyfriend, and she had to move back in with us. She had been working for a couple of months at the time, but she hadn't saved up enough money to afford to raise a baby and live on her own at the same time. So she came back home in 3 months into the pregnancy. She got it into her head that it would be better for her boyfriend to move in with her. As well, she felt like it was important for her to have the baby's father around for proper development. Don't even ask me about that. I wouldn't have had an issue with it, but she was living with us, so I felt like it was a bit of an unreasonable demand because our house wasn't really that massive, and I wasn't sure if it would be able to accommodate all of us. I had initially believed that my parents would decline and not let her have her boyfriend move in, but I had no idea that they were actually planning on agreeing with her and kicking me out instead. A couple of months after Chloe had moved in, my parents told me that they were planning on having her boyfriend move as well, so I would have to give up my room. I was shocked since I really hadn't seen it coming, and I was stupid enough to ask where exactly I was going to be staying in the house. Then that's when my parents clarified that they wanted me to leave the house altogether. Since now I was 18 and it was about time that I left the nest, I had decided to take a gap year, so I wasn't going to college, and that was out of the question. Apart from that, I could have moved in with my grandparents or my friends, but I just didn't understand why I had to move out of my house at all. It was my home as well, not just my sister's. And the fact that she was pregnant didn't mean that she could do whatever she wanted, and my parents had to agree with it. I tried to fight with them, but my parents told me that I was an adult. I had to deal with life on my own, and I had no right to feel entitled to live with them anymore. Especially when my sister was pregnant and she wanted her partner by her side. I tried to explain to them that she could share her room with her boyfriend, but they told me that it was not possible because she wanted her own space. As she got bigger and her room was small enough as it was, having her boyfriend move into that room would only make it more cramped, so she wanted him in a different room. I suggested that maybe he would live in the living room, but apparently her boyfriend had a back injury, so that was not feasible. I was desperate not to leave at the time, so I suggested that maybe I could live in the living room instead, but they told me that they wanted me to leave because having somebody stay in the living room was kind of unseemly. They were just not ready to hear me out, and after a while, it became very obvious to me that they just wanted me to leave. I definitely blamed my parents for the way they were behaving with me, but I also thought that my sister was being unreasonable and entitled. Not only did she want her boyfriend to move in with us, but she also wanted a separate room for him, and because of that, I would have to move out, even though I was not even ready for it. I felt terrible about it, and I had a huge fight with my family the day that I was told to leave. I called them all selfish and said that I never wanted to see them again because they were all disgusting and horrible people, and I was ashamed to even be related to them. Then I packed whatever I owned and called up a couple of friends so they could help me move out. Within the next 3 days, I had spoken to my grandparents, and my mom's parents were a bit skeptical about having me live with them, but I don't really blame them since my grandpa had always been really sick, and my grandma had enough on her plate trying to take care of him. So I decided to move in with my paternal grandparents. And when they heard exactly why I had to leave my parents' house, they were outraged. They really gave my parents a piece of their mind, and then they stopped speaking to them altogether. I was very depressed. Even though I had my grandparents and my friends by my side, I had always thought that I had a good relationship with my parents and even my sister, so I didn't understand why they were treating me like this. But it all became clear to me the day after I left, and my sister sent a letter to me through one of her friends. I still have that letter with me because it was just so bizarre. But anyway, the letter said that the reason she had convinced our parents to kick me out of the house was because of her boyfriend. Apparently, she said that he was a bit of a flirt, and they hadn't exactly been in a committed relationship with each other. When she got pregnant, they only made things official. after she realized that she was pregnant, and she was afraid that he still wasn't very sure of the relationship. She said that she had to fight really hard to get him to agree to move in and commit to raising the baby with her. And so she did not want another woman in the house because that would put the entire situation at risk. I couldn't even imagine why Chloe was willing to have a baby with a man like this, since she was obviously very insecure and didn't trust him. And the fact that she felt like she had to get me to leave the house just so that her boyfriend wouldn't be tempted to flirt or hook up with me was just crazy. I had half a mind to text her and tell her that she had no self-respect, and it was pathetic that she was still trying to be with a man like this and even having his baby, but clearly she was not thinking straight, so I decided to say nothing. Besides, being with a man like this was punishment enough for her. So I wanted nothing to do with her or my family anymore. She had no self-respect or dignity, and since my parents were so easily influenced by my sister, they clearly showed me where I stood with them. I decided that not speaking to them would be the best thing to do in this situation, and then I started trying to move on with my life. I had never really been inclined towards academics in the first place, which is why I decided to take a gap year and think about what I really wanted to do with my life. I did not want a typical 9-to-5 job, and I know it sounds kind of strange, but I always felt like that kind of lifestyle would be too restrictive. For me, I am a self-taught musician. I can play both a guitar and drums, and I've been playing since I was 12. So I'd say that I was pretty good. And during the gap year, I kind of realized that this is what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to be a magician, and I knew that there was not a lot of money in this career, but it would make me happy, and that's all that I wanted. And I thought that maybe I would be able to make it big someday. At the time, I didn't know that it would actually come true. Well, at least sort of. Initially, I was only playing small gigs and money was tough. I was heavily relying on my grandparents for money, and it took me a really long time to be able to afford an apartment. And even then, it was a really tiny one that I had to share with a roommate. After that, I started getting slightly more serious gigs. Until the beginning of this year, when I auditioned to work with a music producer. And I won't be taking names, but I got the gig. I'll be playing the guitar and a couple of songs for a film, and I'm getting compensated really handsomely for that. I've already received some money for that in advance, and I've managed to move into a better apartment, and I'll be getting the rest after the entire job is done. After this, I think I'm gonna be getting even more work. With the resume that I have, the only people who knew about it were a couple of my friends and my grandparents, and I don't know who spoke out of town, but somehow my parents were able to find out about it. I haven't even posted any of this on social media yet because I don't want to talk about it too soon. Nothing is really permanent in showbiz anyway. 2 days ago, my family was somehow able to find out where I lived, and they showed up at my door. Obviously, they needed my help since I'm doing better in life right now. And both my parents have retired, so they need somebody to support my sister. And her kid, I did not invite them in. When they showed up, I was too surprised to do anything but just stare. Anyway, since I wasn't in a position to speak to them, they congratulated me and said that they were here to make things right with me. Not because we were family, but also because they needed my help since Chloe's boyfriend walked out on her 2 years ago. And as soon as they found out that I was working as a guitarist in a film soundtrack, they knew that they had to get in touch with me because it's such a huge deal. They also told me that Chloe was struggling to keep up with the business that she had started since her boyfriend had left, and both my parents had retired last year, so now they needed me to step up and help my sister out. They told me that they were hoping that I would not turn them away, since it had been a long time since we had spoken, and in spite of everything that had happened, we were still family. So we needed to be there for each other above all things. I found that to be perfectly laughable, because they had not been there for me at all. And in fact, they had taken every possible measure to make sure that they didn't have to be there for me. Even right now, they were only here because my sister's boyfriend had walked out on her and she did not have anyone to support her. Apparently she was getting child support. But that was barely going to cut it in the future because it was a miserable amount. And my sister had been running a flower shop with her friend after her baby was born, but even that was not doing well right now. So they had turned to me for help. But the situation was so ironic that I literally couldn't help but laugh in their faces. Especially because I remember the letter that my sister had sent to me the day after I left. She herself had known all along that she was not sure of the relationship that she had with her boyfriend. And yet she had chosen him over having a good relationship with me. And now look where that it landed her. So I went back into my house after telling them to wait outside. I got the letter that I had kept safely with me, and I returned it to the person who had written it and told her to read it out loud to our parents so they could know exactly why they had kicked me out all those years ago. Chloe went red in the face when she saw that letter and refused to read it out, so I took it back from her and I read it out loud. After I was done, my parents looked shocked and embarrassed at the same time because they had realized that they had been manipulated and they were so weak-willed that they couldn't even tell right from wrong. Most of all, they seemed to be pissed at Chloe because it appeared that she had known all along that he was not the right guy and she had decided to put her faith in him. In doing so, not only had she screwed herself out of a safe and secure future, but she had also made things very difficult for our parents because now they had no choice but to support her. None of them had any idea what to say after that letter had been read, so I just told them that whatever was happening with them right now, they totally deserved it, especially Chloe. Since she had known that the guy she had been with was not the right kind of person, and yet she had chosen to sacrifice everything for him. So this was on her right now, and I felt no obligation to help her out. She started crying when I said that, and told me that she had expected me to be a bit more compassionate since she was in love with him, and that's why she had wanted to make things work with him. She just did not want to take any risks, and she knew that having me around would be an issue because she did not want her to feel tempted by anyone else. She was ready to admit that she had not been thinking straight, but that was only because she was having a baby and she wanted to do everything in her power to make sure that her boyfriend stayed with her and did not abandon her and her kid. But to blame her for the situation that she was in right now was just insensitive of me, and she said that she expected better. I didn't have anything to say about that, so I just slammed the door shut and I told them to leave after that. Since then, I have received a bunch of messages from her friend saying that I was very insensitive and that she hasn't stopped crying ever since. I said that all of this was her own fault. So now I have to ask Ida to tell my sister that it was her own fault, that her boyfriend abandoned her and her kid. Update 1: I've made up my mind that I'm not going to be apologizing for anything that I have said. The comments made me realize that, even though I was trying to treat the situation as somewhat normal, what Chloe had done was beyond abnormal. It was bizarre and pathetic, and honestly, she definitely did deserve it. So it's not like I had said anything wrong. And if she thinks that getting her friends to text me and tell me that I am insensitive for saying what I said, and then maybe I'll apologize to her, she's wrong. She needs to realize that somebody had to put her in her place, and that somebody had to be me, since she still had the audacity to show up at my place and ask for help after everything that happened to me. Because of her, of course. I don't blame solely her, my parents were equally at fault. But the situation wouldn't have taken place at all if she had just had some common sense. I had to work really hard to get to where I am today, and I'm not gonna give a single dollar away to anyone who doesn't deserve it, in my opinion. Even if her business is not doing well, at least she still has it. She can make the best of her situation. There's no need for her to act like she's a charity case. In my opinion, my parents and even my sister have always been the kind of people who think that they should always be doing well. As soon as they hit a tough spot, they start acting like maniacs, and it's like they are going to lose everything the next day. In my opinion, they have absolutely no fighting spirit, and I'm glad that I'm not like them. I'm saying this because even when I was in middle school, I remember my dad had lost his job because the company that he was working in had some crisis that I don't remember anyway. Everyone in my family completely lost their heads, and my dad ended up borrowing a bunch of money from our grandparents. My parents had their own savings, just to be clear, and even my mother had a job at the time, so it was not like there was any reason to panic. But yeah, I have no idea why they did that, and the crazy thing is that they never even bothered to return the money that they had borrowed. I guess it didn't take it seriously, because it was just my grandparents that they were born from. And it seems like they are doing the same thing again, but this time it's my sister's business that's suffering. But unlike my grandparents, I don't feel obliged to help her out. She can either deal with it on her own, or she can ask somebody else for help, because I'm genuinely not interested. Update to so last week. My family showed up at my door, and then Chloe's friends started sending me a bunch of messages, saying that I had been insensitive, and they thought that I should apologize to her. I did not, obviously. After that, for the past couple of days, I had no contact with them. And I was pretty busy as well because I had work. I still had other gigs. Last night I came back home around 10 p.m. and I was really exhausted. But that's the exact moment when my parents decided to call me up. They had used a burner phone. I guess I couldn't recognize the number. I thought it was a work phone call. So I picked it up, and as soon as I did, my parents told me that they had thought about it and had decided to cut my sister out of their lives. I did not know what to say because it was really sudden and I hadn't seen it coming. Besides, I had assumed that it was Chloe who needed my help, not my parents, so I did not understand what they stood to gain by cutting my sister out of their lives anyway. I told them that it was great news, but even then I wanted nothing to do with them. Because of the way that they had treated me in the past, it was not something that I could forgive and forget so soon. I know that is not exactly so soon, but it did not matter. I just didn't want to speak to my parents. I was happy enough with my life having no contact with my family, and I don't think that anyone in my will ever be able to move on from what had happened. If I had had a bad relationship with them right from the beginning, and then they had kicked me out when I turned 18, I probably would have found it easier to accept. But all of it just came as such a huge shock that I couldn't deal with it emotionally for a really long time. And now that I finally have accepted it, I don't want them back in my life. So I made that very clear to them. I told them that their relationship with Chloe did not bother me at all because I did not want to have a relationship with them in any capacity. And that was my final decision. I was about to hang up, but my mother stopped me and said that they had done what I had wanted to, so I had to be there for them. And I couldn't make excuses like this. I couldn't for the life of me understand what they were talking about. So I asked them to elaborate, and they told me that they had assumed that I had obviously read out that letter because I wanted them to know the truth about why Chloe had asked them to kick me out and realize that they had been manipulated. And they were right about that, but they went horribly wrong after that. Apparently, they had somehow started to believe that the only reason I wanted them to know that they had been manipulated was so that they would cut Chloe out of their lives. And then I would be willing to rebuild my relationship with them and even help them out in the future now that they have retired. I was really confused because I had not hinted at that at all. And if they had started to believe something like this, that was completely on them and not on me. So I told them that I had not given them any hints, but my parents started yelling at me, saying that I had been misleading them, and now I had to promise to help them out whenever they needed it in the future. Apparently, they had been spending a lot of money on helping Chloe keep up with the bills and also raise her son. So they feared that they hadn't saved up enough money for their own retirement. They didn't have the option of going back again, so they had to rely on their other daughter, and they were appalled that I was refusing to help them out. I don't even understand what was wrong with my parents. But it was so ridiculous that I decided to hang up on them. Well, they were talking about how they expected me to help them out. And then I blocked that number. And I have decided that I'm not going to be taking any calls from any numbers that I don't recognize right away, and I might even install some apps to help me place unrecognized phone numbers because I'm so sick of my family right now. I just don't want to be reachable to them. Plain and simple. I've also spoken to my grandparents about it, and they think that I have the right idea about cutting them out of my life completely and not allowing them to reach me. Things have pretty much gone downhill in my personal life ever since I opened the door the other day. I guess I shouldn't have opened the door to my apartment at all, and it would have saved me a lot of trouble because now it feels like they are stuck on me and are refusing to leave me alone. Update 3: the funniest thing just happened today, and I feel like I have to share it. So it has been 2 weeks since my parents last contacted me. And after I blocked them, they thankfully did not try to reach out to me again, apart from an email that they had sent 2 days after I blocked them, saying that they would still be cut Chloe out of their lives entirely, if and only if I promised to take care of them in the future. Honestly, I think it's very sad that they are willing to cut her out of their lives, because it just goes to show that they cannot be loyal to even one of their daughters. They are horrible parents, and I can't say that I feel bad about what I did today, because all 3 of them are equally bad anyway. For the last 2 weeks, I hadn't been in touch with them and I was pretty busy. But today around 8 in the morning, I was going through my emails, and I realized that I had received one from Chloe. She had been very patronizing and pompous, that one, saying that she was ready to forgive me for what I had said about all of this being her fault, and that she had deserved this because she knew that it was coming from a place of bitterness and hatred, and even though I had not apologized for anything, She still managed to find forgiveness in her heart for me because she was surrounded by kindness, like her friends and her family. No matter what, she will always have her parents and people who loved her, no matter who left her. And I was just jealous that I would never have that. She was bragging about this support system that she had, and she had included our parents in it. So I assumed that she had no idea that they had been planning to cut her off so they could get on my good side because I'm on my path to success right now. And it was just so funny because all I had to do was take a screenshot of the message that my parents had sent me and send it to her as a reply to the email that she had sent to show her exactly how much her parents loved her. It's just sad because I'm pretty sure that if you put all their money together, they will be able to get by, and they have no reason to be acting like this. But they're just so greedy that they see anybody doing slightly better. In their lives, they feel like they have to get a piece of it. First, it was my grandparents. Since they are pretty well off and they're not stupid, so they know how to manage their wealth. And now it's me because I'm doing better than my sister. It's very obvious to me that none of them value each other, and I think they should know that. Update for hi everyone. So many of you wanted an update on the situation with my family. I have nothing to do with them anymore, but from what I know, there's uproar in the family right now. The message that I sent, the one where I had exposed my parents for saying that they were ready to cut Chloe out of their lives as long as I promised them that I would help them out in the future, pretty much shattered any relationship that they had with each other. Chloe, like an idiot, put up a huge post about it on social media, saying that she had always put her trust in the wrong people, but she had apparently never expected her parents to turn out the same way they were her parents. I don't think she was wrong for that. Nobody expects their parents to turn out like this. But I think she should have seen this coming after they kicked me out. They have no loyalty towards anyone apart from themselves. In retaliation to their post, my parents put up another post saying that she had been leeching off of them for the past couple of years, and they have been supporting her without any questions. But there has to be a limit to everything, and she can't expect to live off of her parents indefinitely. So they are caught in a social media battle right now, and there's a lot of drama surrounding them, which is definitely not good press for her flower shop. At least my parents are still retired, but she has a reputation to think of, but she doesn't even seem to care about it. She only cares about getting back at her parents, and I'm not even surprised that she's not successful right now. She's only looking at the short-term goals, and that's how she has been her entire life. My grandparents and I are just sitting and enjoying the drama that's unfolding, because even though I have nothing to do with it, I kind of do have everything to do with it right now. Both of them have had the good sense to keep me out of their posts because they probably know that if I get involved, all three of them will come out really badly anyway. I don't even want to speak up about any of this and give them the attention that they are seeking right now. It's very obvious to me that they only want people to sympathize with them, but so far nobody from our family has fallen for it. In fact, people are kind of avoiding them because of how they act, and it is so stupid that they don't even realize that their actions are having the opposite of the desired effect. But whatever, my life is pretty great right now, and that's all that matters to me.